We've all watched it happen. Some handguns don't go out with a bang, they just quietly vanish. No headlines, no final hurrah, just a slow drift into obscurity, ending up as surplus deals or forgotten footnotes in old collector catalogs. Think about the Colt 2000 All-American, the Remington R51, or the Taurus Curve. Most of them just fade away. But every once in a while, one of those ghost guns comes roaring back, not as some retro cash-in or limited collector drop, but as a genuine resurrection no one expected. And what really stings? Some die-hard Glock owners are dropping their carry pistols just to get their hands on one. In this video, we're digging into how a stack of abandoned factory frames and a single stubborn engineer managed to bring a legendary pistol back from the grave. We'll take a deep look at how this old-school squeeze-cocker sidearm got rebuilt from scratch, sidestepped a mess of intellectual property hurdles, and might just end up giving today's most popular carry guns a run for their money. This is one comeback story you don't want to miss, because nobody saw it coming. So let's rewind to the late 1970s. German law enforcement was hunting for a duty pistol that could be carried cocked and loaded, but stay absolutely safe until the precise moment the shooter chose to fire. Heckler & Koch stepped up with a revolutionary design, one that fused a gas-retarded blowback system with a unique front strap squeeze cocking mechanism. The concept was clean. Once you gripped the frame and applied pressure to the front strap, the striker system would fully cock and stay that way only while the grip pressure remained. Let go, and the striker would immediately decock even if your finger was still resting on the trigger. Combine that with a fixed cold hammer forged barrel set extremely low over the shooter's hand, and you had a service pistol that shot flatter than many dedicated match guns, produced tighter groups than most revolvers, and delivered a level of mechanical safety few semi-automatics could match at the time. But as clever as it was also a machinist's nightmare. Every internal piece was cut, drilled, pinned, or shaped with aerospace-level tolerances. The gas piston beneath the barrel needed its own custom jig just to be pinned correctly. The slide assembly was a welded multi-piece design, and the internal squeeze cocking system inside the grip looked more like something you'd find in a luxury timepiece than in a combat pistol. Even the polygonal rifled barrel required specialty steel sourced from France and had to be hammer forged on custom mandrels. Heckler & Koch ran full-page ads trying to justify why it cost nearly double what a Browning high power sold for, and they weren't lying. This thing was basically hand-built. That pistol? The legendary P7. Its overbuilt design is why it served for so long in uniformed police hands, but it's also what led to its downfall. It was too complex, too expensive to make, and the machines building it were aging fast. Add in the rise of polymer striker-fired pistols taking over the duty market, and every single new P7 rolled off the line at a financial loss. Eventually, Heckler & Koch shut it down, and that's when the frenzy began. What used to be crates full of German police trade-ins became highly sought-after collectibles. Clean private market M8 and M13 models started climbing past the $3,000 mark. Rare K3 variants in .22 long rifle, .32 automatic, and .380 automatic found themselves behind glass in collectors' vaults. The gun's myth only grew because it became almost impossible to find. That's the exact moment a Texas-based engineer named Brett found himself drawn deeper into the world of the P7. He had carried one for over 10 years and loved its precision and design, but dreaded the thought of it becoming a $1,000 paperweight the moment a critical part broke. Recoil springs were getting scarce, piston cups had vanished from the market, and very few gunsmiths still understood how to work on the platform. Brett started small, reverse engineering the tiny coil springs that most often failed. The community on the HK Pro forums took notice. Demand exploded. He moved on to more difficult components, fabricating plungers, detents, and pins. But that still wasn't enough. People didn't just want spare parts anymore, they wanted fully working pistols. The turning point came when Brett discovered a stash of 92 unfired P7 M8 frames left over from the final production runs, sealed in preservative and long forgotten. No slides, no barrels, just bare frames. That was enough. He secured a Type 7 manufacturing license, reserved time on precision CNC machines, and spent over a year reverse engineering the most complex parts from the ground up. He sourced the exact same French-made chrome moly steel that Heckler & Koch once used, had new polygonal mandrels manufactured, and contracted with Rim Country Manufacturing to cold hammer forge brand new barrels. Each barrel blank went through a full process: stress relief, finish machining, heat treatment, cryogenic quenching, and finally, plasma nitriding for long-term durability. The biggest challenge turned out to be the slides. The original Heckler & Koch parts were precision welded from 3 separate components, then machined and ground down to tolerances within 0.02 of an inch. To match that level of precision, Brett engineered custom jigs for clamping, then welded 17.4 pH stainless breech blocks into each machine slide housing. He milled aggressive rear serrations deep enough for easy manipulation with gloves, while still preserving structural integrity. Once barrels and slides were finally locked in, he turned to finishing touches. Rather than go with old-school bluing or parkerizing, Brett settled on black nitride, a ferritic salt bath process that hardens the steel surface to around 60 on the Rockwell scale, while giving it a slick graphite-colored finish. It shrugs off sweat, holster wear, and even mild solvents. Some skeptics worried it might require exotic cleaning methods, but Brett had already pushed test guns through thousands of rounds using nothing but ballistal and standard hops No. 9 with no issues. Next came the heat factor, the one thing everyone has complained about on the P7 series since day one. His solution? A small batch of titanium frames, milled from solid-grade 5 billets on a 5-axis machine, then diffusion hardened and coated with DLC titanium, transfers heat far more slowly than steel or aluminum, which means the gas piston's thermal load builds up more gradually, letting shooters get through a few extra mags before the frame starts getting hot around the trigger guard. At this stage, people watching the project all started asking the same thing. How is this even legal without Heckler & Koch sign-off? And the answer is simple: patents. The original squeeze cocking and gas delay blowback systems were filed back in 1976. Those protections expired after 20 years, putting the mechanical design firmly in the public domain by the mid-90s. While trademarks like the Heckler & Koch logo or the name P7 are still off-limits, the inner workings of the gun are fair game. Brett named the company 7 Pro, never used the HK trademark, and clearly labeled each pistol as a modern squeeze cocker built on vintage German frames. Serial numbers on the slides read 7 Pro M8, not HK P7 M8. So there was no confusion and no legal gray area. He even consulted with IP lawyers before going live. That first wave of pistols started shipping out in June of 2024. Early customers who had reserved theirs via email received tracking numbers, and soon after, a brand new pistol that felt like it just rolled out of Oberndorf, only better. Every single one was function tested before leaving the shop. Buyers also receive care guides for the nitride finish, and those who ordered threaded barrels could pick between half by 28 or 13.5 by 1 left-hand threads. Thanks to upgraded chamber specs and heavier recoil springs, these guns can run 147-grain subsonic loads with a suppressor. Since the barrel is fixed, there's no need for a Nielsen device, just a direct thread, can, and fixed mount. A 6-baffle configuration of the Dead Air Odessa 9 proved ideal, keeping back pressure tame while preserving the slim silhouette the 7 is famous for. To keep things streamlined, Brett limited options on that first production run. Buyers could either get a plain nitride slide with traditional HK dovetails or pay a little extra for a slide milled to accept legacy HK sights, while gaining a ledge-style rear for easier one-handed racking. Even with the minimal choices, these pistols still offered more than most used market P7s, especially when you factor in the cost of replacing old springs, re-barreling, refinishing, or recutting sights. One new owner said he had once been ready to pay top dollar for a near-mint surplus P7, but then he'd have to thread the barrel, refinish it, and hope the gas piston sleeve wasn't corroded. Instead, he got a factory-fresh squeeze cocker that ran smoother, stayed cooler, and came suppressor ready out of the box. With those original 92 frames out the door, 7PO shifted its focus to the next chapter, manufacturing brand new American frames. These would be available in 3 materials: 70-75 T6 aluminum for reduced weight and lower price, 41-40 steel for traditionalists who want the full heft, and a small run of titanium for collectors chasing exclusivity. The aluminum variant incorporates a built-in accessory rail, finally answering decades of requests for a squeeze cocker that could support a weapon light. The steel frame closely mirrors the original layout, but adds subtle reinforcement in key stress zones based on data from destructive testing. Unless you're measuring with a caliper, you'd never notice. All 3 frame types share a redesigned gas block with more surface area, allowing it to dissipate heat more quickly and keeping the trigger area cooler over long strings of fire. The slide lineup evolved at the same time. Gone are the old HK dovetails. In their place is a Novak-compatible cut, opening up a wide array of aftermarket iron sights and dovetail plate adapters for micro red dots. Brett showed off a prototype optics ready model at a regional demo event. It had a shield RMSC cut with backup irons co-witnessed in the rear notch. Shooters were floored. The P7's famously low bore axis already made it feel like cheating, but adding a red dot took speed and accuracy to a new level. Some folks worried about structural integrity, but finite element stress modeling and 5,000 rounds of live fire testing proved there were 0 issues: no cracks, no shifted pins, no separation in the optic window. Naturally, once the build started making the rounds, the next question was caliber. Back in the day, Heckler & Koch stretched the 7 platform into .40 Smith & Wesson with the M10 and even dabbled with a one-off prototype in .45 ACP, though that version never left the lab. At 7PA, Brett put both .40 and 357 SIG through rigorous testing, using high-speed video to analyze everything from gas system timing to feed angles. Initial results looked promising for .40 Smith & Wesson, just some minor tuning to gas port diameters and recoil spring weights. 357 SIG, on the other hand, pushes the limits. It may require a longer slide to safely manage the pressure curve. As for 10mm, unlikely. The grip and magazine geometry simply won't accommodate it without a total overhaul. Instead, the next experimental run will circle back to the old K3 idea this time, in 380 ACP. With today's defensive hollow point loads and the inherent accuracy of a fixed barrel blowback, that chambering could surprise people. Think subcompact footprint with controllable recoil and real-world stopping power. Ordering one of these isn't like clicking add to cart. There's no flashy web store, no pop-ups, and no influencers hyping drops. If you want a 7 Pro, you send an email to info7pro.com, list the features you're after, and wait for your build slot to come up. That slower, deliberate pace has fostered a tight-knit community. Owners post photos of their serial numbers in sequence, compare thread cap designs, and debate whether DLC has a richer black tone than QPQ nitride. The project runs lean, without outside investors or flashy ad campaigns, and yet every build slot fills months in advance. It's proof that real passion can outperform venture-backed marketing, especially when you're making something this unique. Why has this resurrection struck such a chord? Because the original P7 was always different. No polymer, no double action, and certainly never cheap. At a time when almost every pistol strips the same and shoots the same, a squeeze cocker demands your attention. Grip pressure preps the striker. Releasing that pressure decocks it. The trigger pull feels like a match-tuned single action after a short, deliberate take-up. The fixed barrel feeds modern hollow points without drama. If the extractor snaps, no problem, the fluted chamber will still push brass out. And the gas piston slows everything just enough to leave spent cases in a tidy pile at your feet. That whole experience, now updated and priced in line with other premium carry pistols, isn't just about chasing nostalgia. It's about proving mechanical innovation still has a place in the modern handgun market. So what should you buy if you're thinking about making the jump? If you want the most faithful throwback to the Cold War era, go for one of the remaining German frame 7 Pro M8 models. You'll get the classic feel, but with new internals and modern finishing. If you want an optic cut and a light rail, hold out for the aluminum frame version with Novak cut slides. Those are expected to drop near the end of the year. If you're a weight-obsessed collector, start saving now for the titanium variant. Only a handful will be made, and resale prices are already climbing. Suppressor users should be sure to request the updated recoil spring and chamber geometry. With a good direct thread, can and 147 grain subsonic loads, recoil practically disappears. Worried about parts support? You shouldn't be. Brett planned for that. Every critical component, springs, pins, magazines, even the once impossible to find trigger housings, is now being made in the United States. The CAD files are backed up, and the tooling exists to scale. That means the 7 Pro platform isn't dependent on scavenging leftover parts from Europe. It also allows future improvements if a better piston material is discovered or a superior finishing process comes along. It can be implemented without jumping through corporate red tape. Durability looks excellent so far. Test guns have run past 12,000 rounds with zero measurable barrel erosion. The nitride finish shows only subtle polish where the slide meets the rails. Gas piston seals are still tight. Spring rates are holding. The squeeze cocker still requires the same 12 pounds of initial pressure, with a steady pound and a half to hold. In short, it's holding up exactly the way you'd expect from a firearm designed for elite law enforcement in its prime. But beyond the mechanics, this story taps into something deeper. It's part of a broader movement enthusiasts reclaiming and reviving designs the big manufacturers left behind. Just like small shops brought back the Colt Python and high power before the major names jumped back in. 7 Pro shows what's possible when craftsmanship and modern machining meet an underserved market. This isn't a nostalgia cash grab. It's what happens when someone sees a great design sitting dormant and has both the tools and the talent to breathe life into it. The result? A pistol that blends old-school engineering with new-age practicality and finally brings the squeeze-cocker experience to shooters who grew up thinking every serious carry gun had to be a Glock or a Sieg. So now you know how a single builder resurrected a Cold War classic, made it better, and gave it a future that even Heckler and Koch never envisioned. Would you trade in your Glock 19 for one? Which setup would you go for, the rail-ready aluminum, the optic-ready Novak cut, or the rare titanium build? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button, share this with your range buddies, subscribe for more deep dives into iconic firearms, and ring that bell so you never miss a revival story.